Hi there, beautiful souls. So a while back I asked a question in the community post about ideas for movies that you'd like, and I was expecting more basic movies, but instead the very first question that I got about a movie was a question from Deon, and it's called How to Let Go of Your Old Personality. Now Deon is a bit more advanced, I think, in trying to figure out and trying to heal, but a short explanation about the question is like a lot of people had a very stressful personality in the past. The stress was accumulating in their body, and they kept choosing stressful situations, or they were in a stressful situation too long, whereas they should have left earlier. So therefore the stress accumulates, and maybe when they let go, finally relax, something happens, something like a disease can start, which is probably the start of a healing phase. Stress comes out, but you also need at the same time to unlearn all your adapted behavior, and therefore the question, how to let go of your old personality? Well, I'm going to try this to answer the question as best as possible. I'm not an expert in this. Well, maybe I am. Because I've done it myself. And I'll tell you a little bit how I did it. And first, the old personality. We can look at it as something bad, stress addicted, cortisol addicted, adrenaline addicted, human. But is that really bad? I don't think so. Because what you see is that all these adaptive behaviors are egoic behaviors. And eventually, over time, you can identify with these behaviors. But the ego is sort of a survival program from the psyche. And it therefore repeats patterns that it knows that it is safe. But it has these patterns and this coping behavior because it wants to avoid getting hurt. It wants to avoid feeling bad. It wants to avoid feeling negative emotions. But at a certain point, the negative emotions are in your body. They are there. And then the ego tries to avoid you from looking at it because you have the subconscious or unconscious belief that these feelings are bad. Probably as a child you were bullied or ignored or punished because you were angry or something like that. Or you were not supposed to be sad, or you're supposed to be a good kid, you're supposed to be a good human. And therefore you have the belief inside of yourself that some parts of your psyche are bad, unwanted, and a threat to your survival. And of course these belief systems and these emotions are not bad for your survival at all. Instead, denying them is actually bad for your survival. So we are also dealing with a belief system that is not helping you, so to speak. And to deal with belief systems, I'd like affirmations. And affirmations work best, sort of a hypnosis method, when your mind is really calm, like in a deep meditation, where your brain waves are very slow, where And a few weeks ago, I saw this affirmation from Teal Swan. And the affirmation is, I release the old versions I created of myself to survive. And I think that is a beautiful affirmation. Or I allow my emotions completely. I like to feel my anger. All these type of affirmations can help you reprogram your subconscious mind so that it is not dangerous anymore for your egoic self to feel certain types of feelings. And since you're addicted to stress hormones and certain type of unwanted, unnecessary behavior, there is I'm talking a lot about coping mechanisms. And there is a beautiful book that I highly recommend. It's a bit dry, but it's sort of a mind-blowing book. And it has been the most important book for me in my recovery. I've got it here in the Dutch version. In Dutch it's called Leven in je leven, but the English version is called Reinventing Your Life. And it's written by Jeffrey Young and Janet Klosko. So this book is about I think it was like 8 or 9 behavioral traps that you can be in, and how you can try to avoid feeling like that by using fight, flight, or hide, and how to recognize it in yourself and also in others. And if you can recognize stressful behavior, then you can stop it. It might be very difficult and it might be very unpleasant, but when you stop this behavior that is supposed to lead you away from your feelings and your reality, and maybe even as well your symptoms, then you can feel it. And when you can feel it, then you can heal it. And by healing, I mean releasing resistance and letting things go, letting emotions go. And in the 8th and the 12th module of my recovery program that you can access for free, it's based on donations. It's all about releasing these emotions. And releasing emotions is not something that you do quickly. It is a very gradual and slow process that takes a lot of time, but it only gets better because you eventually notice that there is less need for you to do, well, anything at all, actually. And when you're dealing with emotions, and you might have some trouble to feel them or to locate them in your body, and therefore my website helps. But you always come to the point that there is this certain feeling, and it started at childhood or wherever. And then there is a part of you that is in pain. And this parts of you need to reintegrate in your life. Because now there are also other parts of you that are trying to bully that part of you. And all the aspects of your psyche can become whole again. And this is more, I talk about more about this in the 12th module of my recovery program, about wholeness, integrating every aspect of your psyche and soul in your daily life and in your present moment. And when you will do that, you will feel more connected with who you are. And you also realize that everything that you have been doing was, well, you didn't know any better. It was something that you've learned in childhood to deal with really difficult situations, and therefore there comes the moment that it is time to forgive yourself. But forgiving yourself is also not that simple, I think, because I reversed the whole process, and I talk about this more in the 11th module of the program. Forgiving yourself. I reversed it and I asked myself for forgiveness. I asked my soul for forgiveness. And it took a while. But then, a few weeks later, I sort of felt like I have forgiven myself. And I don't look bad at everything. I don't judge myself anymore. And I got inner peace as a consequence of that. And it started by, crying a lot. Because, every time I was involved in a coping mechanism from very early childhood on up to all the way, well, let's say my middle 30s almost, it was a form of self-hatred by doing all these activities. Thinking that I have to be someone, thinking that I have to do something, or automatically running away, trying to achieve, there are a lot of coping mechanisms, and this book is full of them. But it's self-hatred, and every time there is a part of you that is in pain when you do it, and this pain releases itself, I think, when you forgive yourself, which is something that happens to you. And at the same time, when you run away from yourself, you got so disconnected from feeling and your intuition that you also need to learn to relearn to use your intuition, or to feel it and feel all the small feelings and signals, because big emotions like rage is very big, but the emotions can become much subtler. There is also this saying that when you don't hear the whispers of your body, it will scream to you. So chronic fatigue or like really insane emotions is like screaming of the body. But you need to really tune into the body and really feel deeply and become aware of really small and subtle feelings and thoughts that come up in your mind. And then it's the question, do you trust your intuition? That is also a question I got. I got a question from, I think it was Ivan Plum. Do you trust your intuition? And Well, in the beginning I didn't, because my intuition was also leading me towards pain, because it needed more pain in my life for me to realize that those pains were already in me, so that I could learn to feel them and release all these emotions and build up and see what I was doing with all this negative coping behavior. But right now, my intuition, I trust it 100%. I feel it, and I always follow it, because it always brings me somewhere. And it doesn't usually bring me to where my mind thinks that I want to go. But I think in illness, there's also coming a point where you don't really give a shit anymore about what you really want. You just want to go back to life. And you want life to unfold, and you want to be part of the process. And life is not a fixed idea, but life is always constantly changing and constantly a flow. It's like a river where you take part in. And when you want something, you can dig a little pond next to the river and put some water in there. But the water dries out all the time, so you need to constantly work around drying that pond. But what you didn't know is that the river, when you let go, would go to the ocean. And life is a bit like that. And the intuition always wants you to be free. It doesn't want you to have like a little pond next to the river where you need to work like 40 or 60 hours a week for. It wants you to let go. And your intuition will always bring you to the place that is either necessary for healing, or it is like necessary for being who you really are. And eventually, when we connect to ourselves, when we really have forgiven ourselves, then we find out that we are so beautiful. We've always been so beautiful, and that we couldn't see it, and that it doesn't matter anymore. There's nowhere to go, because you arrive in yourself in the present moment. So wherever you go, you're always arrived. And that's a big difference from society, where you're always on the way to a certain type of event or a certain type of feeling. So it's a completely different experience then. Well, this is a pretty intense movie, I think. And I hope you appreciate it. I hope you like my answer, Deon. And for everybody else who is watching, if you would like the content, please subscribe or share it with your friends. And visit my website for the online recovery program. And try to see if you can find and read this book. It's amazing. Cool. I wish you all a very beautiful day. Thanks for watching. Bye.